Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of IEEE Pune's podcast Beyond Conversations. On today's episode, our guest is Atharva Ekatpure. Atharva completed his Bachelors in Chemical Engineering from IIT Patna and is currently pursuing an MS in Environmental Engineering from the University of Stanford in USA. He is also a Schneider Fellow and has recently completed an internship with the World Resources Institute. On today's episode, he speaks about his experiences at IIT Patna, studying chemical engineering, studying environmental engineering at Stanford, his various research publications, how he found these opportunities, and his interest in entrepreneurship. Hello, Atharva. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Aditi. I'm really good. It's a beautiful day out here. How are you?
I'm great too. So let's start directly with the questions. You decided to pursue a degree in chemical engineering at IIT Patna, which is a rather unconventional choice. How did you decide to pursue chemical engineering, and what were your experiences studying in this field?
Yeah, for sure. There's two sides to answering that question. First is that chemical engineering is really broad and it is a fascinating field. I did not know a lot about it when I was pursuing my higher studies in 11th and 12th, and I wanted to pursue aerospace engineering because I'm always interested in space and also mechanical engineering because it's sort of like what everyone was pursuing, and I know that all of it had like good future. But I also did not get like a really good rank in my JEE, so I was sort of in the dilemma: should I go for somewhat of a mediocre college and pursue mechanical or aerospace engineering, or should I go for a good college with really good reputation and pursue this field called chemical engineering? And then I looked at the contents of all of these fields, and I found that hey, even though I like space, aerospace engineering is not all about space. It has a lot
Right,
of fluid mechanics, a lot of these things which you don't normally associate it with space because it's most of engineering of rockets and satellites.
right.
And then I looked at chemical engineering, and I really liked that. Hey, it's a very broad field. Even if I want to go do something with ISRO, NASA, or do something in space, that is a good field to go into because it is really broad. And that's why I decided to go into chemical engineering. And basically, what chemical engineering is that you make a particular substance or make particular chemical in a lab, and now you want to mass produce it. So you make a soap, for example, in a lab, and now you want to make millions of such soap. How do you do
Right.
that? Then you need big plants, you need good engineering.
Indeed.
The engineering really differs from making it in a lab
Hmm.
to now when you actually make it in a big factory. And that's what chemical engineering is about. And so I always liked physical chemistry during my 11th, 12th, and that's why I decided to go for that field. And actually, I think it was a really good decision because especially if you go to a good college like IIT Patna, you have that uh, you have a lot of people who you can interact with. All of them are doing different things, and you're not sort of restricted to one section where you only have to pursue things about chemicals. So I got to learn
Right.
a lot about different things, and I got to work in different fields. So yeah.
Okay. And like you said, there was a lot of exposure being in a college like IIT Patna. You've
Yeah, for
been a
sure.
research associate right from 2018, and you've written publications about plasma activated water, lagoon cascade treatment. You've also built practical applications like bioreactors and
Yeah.
treatment plants. So, how did you find these opportunities? And in very simple terms, can you explain your research?
Yeah, for sure. So, in my first year, this was sort of my first exposure to like colleges. Like in India, for your 11th and 12th standard, you don't do any sort of social activities. You're
Yeah,
restricted
you're
to
kind of
just
isolated to that one training class.
exactly, and like you're like studying all the time. And then when I went to IIT Patna, it was just like an explosion of so many things you can do. You
Right.
can pursue all these cultural activities. I really like to do public speaking, and
Mhm.
then there were all of these events that were happening around. So I actually got so much immersed into that I really did not focus on my academics, and my GPA got really low. I remember coming here, and then I told my mom that, hey, this is like a really low GPA, and I don't know what I'm doing. And then that's why it's sort of and so I had like 2 months of holiday. That's another good thing about being at IIT is that you get like 2 months of summer holidays and 1 month of
Right.
winter holidays. So I was here. I was sort of reflecting back on what sort of choices I had made, and how I sort of needed to not only like be good at academics, but after a year, I did not know what I wanted to do, and it sort of always hit me that I don't know what I'm going to
Right.
do. I don't know anything about chemical engineering. So I started to read a lot of Quora. I started to read a lot of different insights from Google, and I started connecting with a lot of people from LinkedIn. And
Mhm.
what I used to do is just like connect with like 15 to 20 people. One or two of them used to connect with me, and then I used to send a message and, have like something that what we are having very similar to that, and
Yeah.
just ask them, what are you pursuing? How did you get there?
Right.
And then I found these amazing people through that. I found people who have been working from their first year now are pursuing great fields in wherever they want to do in MIT, in any way they want to do. So I got really inspired by that, and basically that's when I understood that basically it's not like everything is going to be given to you. You have to apply yourself,
Right.
whichever college you come from.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to. And my only point was that I want to know what I want to do, what I'm good at, and what I want to do
Right.
because chemical engineering is really broad. So literally started applying to anywhere I can. And basically, I used to mail professors, I used to mail to companies and just ask them, hey, do you have an opening? Can I work in the 1 month of winter holiday that I have in my
Right. So
second year?
like cold mailing organizations and
Yeah,
people who.
exactly. And that was a skill that probably is the most important skill that I've learned because most of the time you need things more than they need you.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
just have to have that skill of networking. And I think it is
Right.
much more important than just being good at academics right now.
Right.
So I just made a lot of people, and luckily I had this colleague of mine who was sort of a dean at VIT in
Huh?
Pune. And then he connected me with a lab in VIT Pune that was sort of working in wastewater treatment. And basically, what they did was the water that you get in your taps is really filtered. Like you can't just use water from rivers.
Yeah.
It has a lot of contaminants. So you have to really treat the water, really make it better. You have to
Right.
do a lot of different processes that are involved so that you can make it potable, you can make it drinkable. And that's what they were doing. And I just applied and I just got in. And that's what I was working on. I did not have any exposure to that, but like I said, having that brand value of IIT associated really
Yeah.
helped me get into that first internship.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next couple of internships at VIT, at IISc, at an internship that I had gotten at Canada, but it was cancelled due to the pandemic, was all in wastewater treatment, wherein basically they were just different ways of treating the water so that you
Mm-hmm.
can get the most potable water in the most economical way, in the fastest way. So that's all that research was in a very easy way. And yeah, that's how I got into those fields. So yeah,
Right. Coming to the next question. Can you tell us about the importance of data collection and data science in environmental engineering? How
yeah,
do you collect data from environmental ecosystems and use cutting edge technologies to actually analyze this data and build solutions?
yeah, for sure. So basically, to give you a context to the listeners, what Aditi asked me about is I'm pursuing environmental engineering at Stanford, and uh, to give you a brief background about environmental engineering is we use engineering principle to solve environmental problems from anywhere from like air pollution, public health, recycling, water pollution, all of that. And I mostly worked on like water because I had a background in wastewater, and then I
Right.
decided to uh, pursue something more in data science because that was the fad of that day. Everyone was going into data science.
Yeah.
It is well paid. There are more opportunities, so that's why I decided to go from wastewater treatment to like environmental data science because it was just better.
Mhm.
There were more opportunities. And coming to your question about how do we collect data, there's different ways. So I was working mostly in water. So
Right.
you basically collect samples from different areas, whether it be like maybe you collect the response of before water goes through dams and after it goes through dams, and different areas of the world where the dam water is collected. So then
Right.
you can then you can like go into the lab, check it out, see how it is, and that is one way of measuring water quality. And the
Mm-hmm.
other ways are now it has gotten a lot more advanced, and there's satellite images that can literally just take a photo of the water, and
Right.
based on their advanced algorithm of computer vision, they can predict a lot of things about the water. So these are some of the different ways in which data science is used nowadays. Is that either people take samples, either people use remote sensing, which is
Mm-hmm.
when you use satellites, or some other ways could be Hmm. No, I think that is most of the way. The physical way and the remote sensing way. That is how they collect data, and data is really important right now because you sort of don't know how the water is in different
Right.
areas and where do you want to treat it the most.
Mm-hmm.
Which areas has the need the most water treatment? Which areas
Right.
has the highest quality? What you can learn from each of them. So that's why data science in environmental engineering is really important. And yeah, that's how they collect the data. Hope it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, a lot of students really take part in hackathons these days. And
Hmm.
most of the problem statements for hackathons are societal and environmental problems. So, since you are an environmental engineer, can you tell us how to pick a problem statement? What are the things you should look at while picking a problem statement? And what are the steps that you should use to, resolve an environmental problem using tech?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. So yeah, definitely like take part in hackathons, even if you're not able to come to a solution. Just the atmosphere is really, really inspiring. People are working on different things, and people have really good solutions for each of them. And you just meet a lot of good people who want to work in that area. And I'm really happy how people are like becoming more and more interested in healthcare, in energy, and environmental problems. So, for choosing a particular type of environmental problem that you want to solve with data or with in a hackathon, I don't think there's like any particular boundaries to it nowadays because of the different data sets that you have all around the world. There's literally companies that have become public just by providing data about environmental stuff. So there'll be no shortage of data. So what I would say is like just think about what are you most passionate about and what sort of background does your teammates have in that hackathon, and then go with the problem. So even if
Mhm.
you want to do something in energy and public healthcare or even in environmental, you'll find a lot of data sets. You'll just have to search more for it. And
Yeah.
especially when it comes to countries like United States or Europe, you'll find a lot of data. There's like humongous amount of data.
Mhm.
US government collects a lot of data about different watersheds, about water quality, all of that. So I don't think there'll ever be a problem where you'll be like, I don't have a lot of data.
Right.
When it comes to like maybe India or Africa, there can be a shortage of data, but I think you can um, use a lot of innovative solutions for the data from US and then
Mhm.
maybe tweak it a bit and then apply it to India.
Apply it to, yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, so you can use that data, and the way to sort of look into it is what I usually do is that firstly I visualize the data. You can use anything from like Excel to Python to anything to visualize how the data looks like. Does it make sense? And that's why it will be good if you have someone in hackathon who has a background in environmental engineering or in
Right.
energy or in healthcare, whatever field you want to go
Mhm.
into. And then you can use someone who has a CS background to sort of make these visualization and someone from a engineering background to sort of look into it and see what does that mean. And if you have a problem statement, then after visualization, then you can sort of make algorithms. Then you can start understanding about it, and then you can start tweaking the data or making predictions out of about it. That's what a lot of my projects were about. So you
Mhm.
had a data set, and then you wanted to make predictions about it. So, for example, one project I had was you had agricultural data
Right.
from 20 years from a basin in Gujarat, and now
Mhm.
you wanted to make predictions about how the irrigation output is going to look like in the
Mhm.
next 10 years. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and since that will vary on the basis of population, on the basis of social status, on the basis of irrigation, water available, agricultural output, all of that, and you take all of that into consideration, and then you sort them into training and testing, and then you sort of start making predictions and see how it varies and see how it works out. So yeah, that's how most people do it. Yeah.
Right. One of the questions that my friends had while I was writing down the questions for this interview, most of the people use Python for data
Mhm.
science and artificial intelligence, but you've mentioned that you use the language R,
Yeah.
which is a noble language. So why do you use R instead of Python?
So actually, I nowadays use a lot of Python more than R. It's
Uh-huh.
just that when I used in my first internship, in my first data science related internship, which was a remote internship with a nonprofit organization called um, IWMI. In that, I used R because that was my first exposure to data science, and my supervisor was very comfortable with R. So
All
that
right.
was there was no sort of hidden meaning why I was using R. It was just that it was available, and I would recommend a lot of people to do continue in Python because a lot of the libraries that are being made in Python. It's much
Python, yeah.
easier to use. Uh, the reason why I used R then was only because of my supervisor, but I actually
Right.
found it intuitive as well. And I would recommend that actually you start with language like C++ or C, and then you move on to something like Python. Um, because I found that working in C++ was very intuitive. It was really helpful to understand the algorithms and write one. And then you
Right.
can move to something um, that is that is less fidelity like Python does. So yeah.
Right. So basically, while using languages like C, you kind of understand the internal structure of what's happening
Mhm.
as opposed to Python, which gives you a lot of ready-made things.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Coming to the next question. Tell us about your queue management app,
Yeah.
QMe. How did you build it? How does it work? And what was its impact in controlling crowds during COVID?
Yeah, for sure. So, like again, it comes back down to like I wanted to find what I wanted to do for myself. Like
Right.
I come luckily from a well-off family, so I don't
Mhm.
have that pressure that you have to do something where you have to earn a
Right.
lot of money or you have to do something, you have to take a job or anything like that. So I was very lucky in that aspect. So I always wanted to find out what can I do, where am I good at, where can my skills be most used at.
Yeah.
So it's still the question still haunts me because I'm always trying to find an answer to that. And so what happened was that I was supposed to go to an internship in Canada,
Uh-huh.
um, where I was going to work in wastewater treatment. But as I said, the pandemic
Yeah. Yeah.
happened. I had my visa and everything, but it got cancelled. But
Cancel.
it was all right. I got to spend a lot of time with my family, got to reconnect with a lot of my family members, so that was good. And what happened was that the courses were not happening. I was like really really free, and I just became very bored as to what I should do. What can I do? I was trying to find other internships. I was not being very successful in that, and I just saw that three of my colleagues from IIT Patna, so three of my friends who were two of them were in CS and one of them was in netting.
Mhm.
They were trying to build an app of their own, and
Right.
what they were trying to see was that in India, obviously, there's a lot of queues in everywhere. From
Yeah.
even if you go to hospitals, to barbers, to grocery stores, there's always queues. So, for example, say you want to go to a barber, and instead of like going to a barber and waiting there for 20 minutes, what if you make an appointment with a barber through a queue management app. So basically, you're managing queues, and you can know that hey, you're at like the third place, and you can go there.
Right.
Sorry for the voice crack, but you can go there like in 10-15 minutes. So it
Right.
sort of saves your time, and we also envision that because it is allowing the barber to get more customers because now everyone can see through the app that there is this barber, it has this
Right.
many ratings, and you can go there. And it is also going to be helpful to the barber to gain more money. And that's why we can have some sort of coupon system or something where the customer is also saving money. So save time, save money. The that was the motto of that app. And I
Mhm.
was sort of working in the business development and funding. So my main role was to, since we have this app, can we gain funding from VCs, from grants, from incubation center, so that we can build more features, so that we can, make, so that we can have like more sellers and more sales
Right.
team and growth team. So
Indeed.
that was sort of my role. And two of my friends both of them were in CS. They sort of made the app. Both of them are really, really good at what they do. Especially the person who made the backend was a genius in this field. And he sort of made the system where uh, you have an online queue in which you can sort of see that. Oh, sorry, I'll just drink some water.
Yeah, sure.
So you have an online queue in which basically you can know which number you have in the online queue instead of standing there physically. And that will help you to save time. That was sort of the crux of the app. And they made it, and my role was to work in the funding. And we actually got incubated at one of the centers at IIT Patna. We were selected by one of the best ideas by a particular program organized by the Ministry of India. So that was really good. And most importantly, it sort of made me realize that, hey, maybe job is not the place that I want to go to. Entrepreneurship is something that I really like because it's just that in a job, especially in big corporate governments, say like Google or Microsoft, you work in a very small team in a very small aspect. So you don't know, you can't see where your impact is.
Right.
But if you're working in a startup, there's like 5 to 6 people, and then you know all the workings of the startup, how the revenue is being made, what are the best ways to sort of grow it.
Right.
It was just like a great challenge and fast-paced environment. And even monetarily, it might not work, but once it works, then it works really well. Like if you see like the 500 richest people, 90% of them are entrepreneurs. You don't make that much money if you work in a job. You're going to make only that much money if you have your own startup or if you invest in a startup. So invest in a company. So like monetarily and impactly, I just think that it made more sense. And this is something where I'm right now as well, and it can change in the next 10 years, and I will feel that, hey, this was not a good path. I should have worked in a job or should have done some corporate stint. But it's all right. I think I have that, since I'm in my 20s, I can take those risks, and I'm open to failure in those aspects. So yeah.
That was a really amazing idea on your queue management app.
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, I forgot to mention it did not work out because all of the team members had some different avenues to go into. Some of them did not want to continue, and there's some of them want to get a job. Some of them want to do. I wanted to do an MS, so in the end, it did not work out. But it was really good experience, and hopefully, maybe 15, 20 years down the lane, all of us can get together and maybe start working.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not?
And by then you will have a lot more experience in your respective fields, and you will have more knowledge to build something that is more impactful.
Yeah, and I'll definitely have more connections by that point. So I'll know which investor should we go after, how can we increase the marketing, the sales, everything, all of that. So yeah, experience and networking is something that will be really helpful down the lane.
Right. Speaking about your MS at Stanford University is cited to be the #1 university in the world, and it's really, really selective. So how did you build your profile to get an admit into Stanford?
Yeah, for sure. So, what happened was that like I was pursuing my master's, sorry, not my master's. I was pursuing an internship at IIT Bangalore, and the person that I was working with, he was a PhD, and he sort of advised me at that point that you don't want to, if you want to work in environmental engineering, you should not continue this in India because the scope is really narrow. You won't get, not only will you get paid, but you won't have a lot of impact. You won't learn a lot here, at least at that point. And he said that you should try to look for a master. And then if you want to come back, then you can anytime come back,
Yeah, sure.
So that is what can you hear me all right? I think my connection is it all right?
Oh, I can hear you perfectly well. Even if the video on your side might be a little blurred or something, that's fine because the app kind of manages that whole thing. So yeah, I can see you and hear you clearly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So coming back to the point, I had this pep talk from my PhD guide at IIT Bangalore that, hey, you should go look for master's or a PhD outside of India in US or Europe or Canada. And I just he also told me that try to look for US because US is much more advanced in this particular phase. And Europe is also really advanced in environmental engineering, but there's a lot of language barriers because they have their own languages. You need to learn those. That's why US is a good aspect in terms of culture, in terms of a lot of Indians present there, and in terms of impact as well. So that's why I decided to sort of after my second year try to look at and try to pursue masters. And
Mhm.
again, that age-old agenda where I like connect with a lot of people. So I connect with
Yeah.
like 20, 30 people who are pursuing masters in environmental engineering from different universities. Ask them what is the best way to stand out, what is the best way to build my portfolio, what is the best way to give GRE to fill all of
Uh-huh.
those things. And I got really, really good responses. That really helped me. That was sort of the best way how I understood how to build your application. And that is the best way that I understood. So there's several different aspects while you apply for your master's. There's statement of purpose, which is like a two-page
Yeah.
essay in which you write, what sort of projects you have done, why you're interested in the master's, and what do you want to do if you get a master's in our university. And secondly, there's GRE TOEFL, and then
Yeah.
there's letter of recommendation, there's resume. So 4 to 5 of these things are there. And most of the people that ask me for MS advice, they always go to GRE TOEFL because that's how most of the students in India they want to focus on
Yeah.
exams like JEE or.
Right.
But this is not the case outside of India. And people there don't look for like numbers; they don't look for motivations and your portfolio as a whole. So uh, I always advise that the most important thing is that you have good internships and good projects.
Right.
That's definitely the
Mhm.
most important thing because then you'll have good knowledge, good background. And then the second important thing is that will help you to write the statement of purpose, which is
Right.
actually the most important thing because the portfolio and the projects will help you write a good statement of purpose where you
Right.
can write about your short-term goal, long-term goal. The way that I wrote it, I started with a story about why I want to pursue environmental engineering, my short-term and long-term goal. Then I wrote about my projects in a very technical depth. And
Mhm.
then after that, I wrote about my extracurricular activities because work-life balance is something that is really important, and even those people recognize it. And lastly, I wrote about what I want to do if I get into Stanford, like why Stanford in particular.
Right.
And I always wanted to do something in entrepreneurship, so that Stanford is like the closest university and sort of like a mother to Silicon Valley. So that's why it is sort of the perfect place if you want to be an entrepreneur. So that's why I decided to go there, and that's how I applied. So I had a couple of papers, like you said, from my research
Yeah.
internship. Those really helped. My projects were diverse enough. That really helped, and I wrote. I really worked hard on my statement of purpose. I looked at a lot of other statement of purpose.
Mhm.
I reviewed it a lot of from the people who I had connected with, and I also checked out a lot of YouTube videos, and that really helped. And statement of purpose, letter of recommendations, and resumes were really helpful. And then the GRE TOEFL was not that big of a deal because it doesn't matter that much as much as these things. But I did like 1 month of preparation, and that was enough to get like a okay score where I know that GR and TOEFL will not hinder me to get to a university.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So you would say experiences in the particular field that you want to work in and having a vision about where you want to go
yeah,
would be the
perfect.
key.
That's a good summary. That's a perfect summary. Those two things are really important because look at like why a university like Stanford would want you. Like what are they gonna gain out of it? Like
Right.
apart from your fees, what they're gonna gain out of it is like why is Stanford or MIT so popular is because people who are there have been really successful and they
Right.
sort of advocate that, like co-founders of Google advocate that, hey, I was from Stanford, or Mark
Hmm.
Zuckerberg advocates that he was from Harvard.
Right.
So those people, so they want to see people who are experts at that field and at the same time know where they want to go to or have an idea of they want to go to. And
Right.
those are the people who will most probably be more successful. And
Hmm.
if there's more success, then automatically they're gonna get advertisement and marketing. So
Yeah.
that's why GRE TOEFL is not gonna matter because that isn't a good that won't give you a good idea of if a person is gonna be successful or not.
Right. It's a great way to think of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of students in India think about dream universities like Harvard, Stanford, MIT. Of course, these are big names, but you really don't know what is behind the big names. Like you said, of course, there's the incredible students that come out and do really
Mm-hmm.
great things in their lives, and that's what builds up their reputation. But how was your experience, and what were your key learnings at Stanford?
Okay, so talking about my experience at Stanford, it's the one word to describe is it's surreal because, like I said, the people especially it's really intimidating because there's this thing called imposter syndrome, where you come to you have a particular achievement or you go to a particular school and you just start having anxiety about how it happened or why are you at this place because it's so surreal. Like I said, most of the people at Stanford, like half of the Indians at Stanford are from IIT Bombay. And I was in a class with someone who was All India Rank 1 during 2017. So you find these amazing people. One of the persons that I play badminton with is an entrepreneur who started his own nonprofit organization called Feeding India, which was acquired by Zomato, making him a really large shareholder. And Zomato had a big IPO. So he's now worth like, I don't know, like hundreds of crores. I don't know. But just like meeting these people and, making friends with these people, like, and most probably, I think the most important thing is like once you meet these people, these are like so normal people. You don't expect them, you expect them to be like some visionary, like superhero, but they're not. They're like really normal people. They're just really good at what they do and they're really hardworking. And they're also lucky in some aspects, but most of them are really down to earth. They're really they really wanna. They're really good friends. They really help you, and you build a network with these people. And you also start, like you said, or like the people you surround with, are is as much as important as what you study or who you are as well. So getting in touch with these people, your ambitions soar up the sky. Like you think that you can do anything. You become very optimistic. And Stanford being in California, because I've been to MIT and Harvard as well. I visited during a conference, and it is just so gray and dull because Boston, where it is very overcast. It is like a depressing place, to be honest. But Stanford is in California. It's really sunny. It's so beautiful. You always want to be outside. And MIT and Howard, especially in MIT, just want to be inside classroom. You don't want to go outside.
Right.
So that's why I prefer Stanford. And like I said, the startup environment is like amazing because we're so close to Silicon Valley. Everyone wants to do their own startup. Everyone wants to make it big, and it's intimidating, but also it's really encouraging, really inspiring. So yeah,
It's an amazing, stimulating environment.
for sure, for sure. And the campus is so beautiful, and I always like cherish the late night walks that I take there, or just going to classes, and it's just really positive.
So, coming to the next question, as a part of the Stanford Climate Venture Program, you worked as a growth executive and you speak about environmental engineering as a service. So, where do you think businesses can find the sweet spot where they can both be environmentally conscious as well as build profits?
Yeah, I think that's something that we struggle with as well. So I'm part of a startup called Source, and basically what we do is we make it easy for small and medium commercial buildings to get access to clean energy technologies. So there's solar, there's LED, all of these new energy technologies that are coming up. But say you own a hotel, you don't know what is good for what technologies are good for your particular building, right? Or how much money can you save with these things, or
Right.
what is the cost of these things. So we are trying to build a platform where you can just put in your address and then you get sort of a higher over like a estimate where how much these things cost, what is going to be the output, how much carbon you're going to save, how it is good for the environment, and also how much money you're going to make. Because if you have solar on your rooftop, it makes electricity, and that's why your electricity bill goes down.
Yeah.
So it's also good for you financially. So that is one aspect of it. And as for your question about finding that good rhythm between profit and impact,
Right.
now is a really good time, especially in the US. And I think that is what's going to be in like 5 years in India as well, because people really want to fund these sort of startups which have an impact. So now it's a good time that you're going to get really good exposure to investors who will be ready. There's literally investors who just want to invest in green startups. So
Right.
that is a good thing. As for like generating revenue, I know that can be hard, uh, especially because many of these things might not make good money. But I think that is something that you have to be comfortable with. Like, um, it may not make you a lot of money, but it's gonna have a lot of impact. And obviously, if you want to make like amazing amount of money, then I would suggest you can go in finance or in like AI and all of this stuff, which is actually more revenue driven. But
Right.
yeah, no one in who wants to do these sort of thing is down here for just the money. It's all about the impact, and obviously while doing that you make the money, but you want to have both of those things in mind. That is how you're going to make it. And there's really good startups that are really public, that are making good revenue because they are in the like solar companies, those who make solar panels. There's big
Right.
companies in that aspect in US, and because of government incentives. Because look at how Tesla is doing. It's literally
Right.
electric
Indeed.
vehicle, but it's like its value is more than Ford or Tata and all of these combined, because it's an electric company and because people are caring about it, investors are caring about it, government is caring about it. So I don't think you should worry about money. You should worry about having an impact, and people will fund you. Even if you're not making money, people will just pay you because you're having such a high impact. Government will pay you for sure, or investors will pay you because there's people like Bill Gates who want to see the
Yeah.
world in a better place, and they won't mind paying more money, um, because you're having good impact even if you're not making revenue. So yeah, hope that
Yeah.
answers the question.
So with a lot of environmental awareness, there is a lot of possibility for environmental associations to grow.
Yeah, for sure. And you can make money. But the best thing is having an impact. Like the people I surround with in environmental engineering just are so positive. They're so driven. They're so want to make an impact. So
Right.
whenever you work in these sort of organization, you have really positive feel around you. It's just very, what do you say? It's just very inspiring. So yeah.
Right. Coming back to a question about data science, which is a
Hmm.
very in field even today. So, a very particular question: how did you use the random forest regression model in order to, find the trade-off between high-yielding agriculture and
Yeah.
the impact of nitrate products on nitrate runoff on groundwater
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
surface water?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk like hours about it itself because it was very challenging. It was very technical in that aspect, but I could give a brief overview about the project. So basically, what happens is that you have there's lots of agricultural fields around us in India and even in US. And what happens is if you overuse a particular field, there's lots of new contaminants that come into the soil. So if you overuse a lot of agriculture, uh, if you overcrop a particular area, then there's a lot of new contaminants, fertilizers,
Right.
nitrate that
Yeah.
comes into the soil, which can harm that particular soil. And maybe 5-10 years down the lane, the soil might not be useful at all. You can't grow any crops in it. But at the same time, there's obviously you gain money out of it, and
Right.
it's revenue driven as well. So how can you find a balance between how much you want to aggregate that particular field versus not aggregate is the wrong word. How much you want to use that particular field for agriculture versus how much do you want to use that particular field for forestry or for just keep it natural as it is.
Right.
So that was something that we wanted to find out, and it's obviously on the basis of where that particular field is, what sort of characteristic does it have, does it have a nearby city, what is the overall need for crops in that particular area. So a lot of different things. And so what we did was we had data about that particular soil characteristics,
Mhm.
what type of soil it is, and at the same time what sort of crops grow on it. And at the same time we had data about forest and natural and all of these like forested areas, and we wanted to find out how much revenue you can grow out of it, and if it's better, if that particular area you don't generate a lot of revenue out of it, and if it's better for forestry, then you make it a natural reserve,
Natural
you
reserve.
make it a
Yeah.
national. And else if it is something that is not that good for the animals around it, and if it's a high yield in terms of revenue, then you make it like an agrarian land. So
Right.
sort of finding that, and what we did for that was that we had a lot of data, and then we used random forest regression, which is a machine learning model, and you thrust all of that data there, and then for that particular training data, then you see the outputs of that particular model and see if the outputs are really good or not, and then you use it on newer areas where you don't know what you want to do, and so the governments or maybe farmers can use it to see if they want to use this particular land for as a particular, want to sell it to the government as a natural reservoir, or do they want to use it for as agriculture purpose.
Agriculture, right.
And the reason why we use, there's several different machine learning models, but the reason why we use random forest regression was, first of all, like we tried different things and it just provided a better result. So that was one aspect of it. And secondly, there were like so many variables in that particular thing, like soil characteristics or location, and like I think there were like 50 to 60 different variables. And so random forest regression is really good at telling you which variable has the highest correlation, which variable is providing the highest impact in the prediction. So that's why I think we use random forest regression, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Coming to the next question. You worked with a lot of really impactful organizations in the field of environmental engineering. Can you tell us about your most valuable and insightful project till date?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. So there's like lots of different projects that I worked on that can be impactful in their own ways. One of them, like I said, I'm working on the startup, but because I've already talked about it, let me talk about internship that I did in July. And it was in World Resource Institute, which is another nonprofit organization that works a lot in like environmental fields. And it was in Washington, D.C. So that was good. And what we sort of worked on is that you can see in countries like Saudi Arabia or Africa, where there's lots of violent conflicts that are happening, right? Lots of violence that is there, lots of conflicts. And at the same time, you see that these areas are also not that good naturally. Like they don't have a lot of water. They might not, like, especially in Africa. Saudi Arabia might not be the best example, but in Africa, there's lots of violent conflict, and these people are also scarce in terms of water, food, or energy. So we thought that there might be a relation in terms of insecurity in water, food, and energy, and emergence of violent conflicts. So my sort of role was that they already have a causal model which sort of predicts that, hey, on the basis of increase or decrease in one thing, what is the causal effect on another thing? So if there's an increase in water insecurity, like for example, if a lot of groundwater is being used and there can be a lot of water problems, then will that lead to or affect emergence in conflicts, emergence in national insecurity? And the reason why this is important is because governments, like defense organizations, will be really interested in what sort of factors can harm the nation's security. So there was causal model that was already developed, but it was really, really complicated. And the person who was working on it was really clever, but he did not know how to say this in a very simplified way. So my role was to study about it, talk to that person, and make this into a really clear article, which you can present to any common person. And they can understand the impacts of it, or even present it to people from defense or disaster or diplomacy, and they can understand what the model results are, which is that, yes, if there's food problems, if there are water problems, energy problems, then yes, this can lead to more and more rise in violent conflicts. And obviously that can have a lasting impact on the country's security. So that was really impactful. I got to learn a lot about different things. For example, if you might know China, so there's Tibet, and Tibet, oh my God, I'm forgetting that name, but Tibet has this particular basin which sort of leads to Indus River, Ganga River, and rivers that provide water to Vietnam. So they have this particular small basin, which is the mother of all of these big rivers that, like, provide water to like billions of people. And China is trying to control Tibet. And so how can that have an impact that if they dam a lot of that basin, if they dam a lot of that, they dam a lot of the river, then countries like Vietnam, who are downstream of that river, might have a problem because of that water insecurity. And these sort of insecurities can have more global challenges that Vietnam might want to, have some sort of war or anything with China and these sort of things. So these diplomatic problems, diplomatic tensions can rise due to water insecurity. So yeah.
Right. Can you tell us a little more technically about how the model actually worked?
Yeah, so so it was a long time ago. It's like been like 5 to 6 months, but basically, I don't know the exact workings of the causal model, but basically what it was that it was using very advanced statistical analysis, and what it was doing is that it was seeing that, hey, if we increase one particular variable, then how did the result was affected. So if you increase, say, if there was an increase in rain or rainfall in particular region, then
Right.
because of increase in rainfall down the years, down the lane, did it have an increase in conflict? And so it was a very advanced statistical model. I'm not aware of it, and you can literally just search for causal models,
Right.
and maybe I can share the link of that article later on with you, where you can share it with your listeners,
Yes,
and
sir.
they can look it for it. And so there's like increase in rainfall, and increase in rainfall affects the crop growth, and crop growth affects the prices of the food that is being sold, and the price of the food that is being sold affects the people who are getting the food, or how many people are below the poverty line, or how many people are getting access to good food, and that particularly affects the emergence of conflict in that particular area. So it was a really complicated model in which one particular thing was affecting a lot of downstream values, and that sort of affected the end result, which is the emergence of conflict. And that particular the person who was working on it, he tasted a lot of these models. He said that, hey, what are the different variables that are not affected by anything? Like increase in rainfall is not affected by anything, right?
Yeah.
So, but increase in rainfall can affect a lot of things downstream.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do we see the increase or decrease of these variables is leading an impact to these many intermediate variables, and that in itself has a causal impact in the downstream. And the causality was measured by this particular probability term, which I'm also not recalling right now, but it sort of measured that, hey, increase or decrease in that variable leads to increase or decrease, how much increase or decrease in the final variable. And you can sort of see that, hey, how much is rainfall an important factor in affecting wildlife. So, yeah.
Right. So basically building a relationship between the environment and national security.
Yeah, basically that. And like having not just building a relation, like having a causal mechanism. Like causality is something that is becoming more and more powerful right now. Like Amazon is trying, for example, it has this causal models where it's trying to see, hey, increase in 5-star review. What sort of causal impact? Like, does it cause increase or decrease in sales of a particular thing? So obviously
Right.
it does, but there can be so many different things, like increase in the word, good in the reviews. Does it cause an increase in sales, and
Right.
how much increase in sales does it cause? So now the sellers will know that, hey, if I include this particular term in my description, then
Right.
this will increase in sale because there's a causal element to it. There's not just a relation, not a correlation, but a causation.
Right.
So yeah,
That's a really interesting project. Now, coming to
it
our
was.
last question, which is really, really cliche, but again, very, very important. What is your piece of advice for Gen Z students who want to be environmental engineers in the future?
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, um, I would say connect with a lot of people. That is like really important. Talk to a lot of people, and um, even if you're interested in people, I think the best way is like you might be interested. Like I said, I was interested in space, but aerospace engineering is really different from like working or being interested in like stars, because you work on a lot of engineering aspects. So when you talk to people, who are working in that space. You sort of understand their day-to-day routine, and then you understand that, hey, do you want to pursue this field? So I would say connect with a lot of people, talk to them, and like see what their advices are, because there's obviously people who are cleverer than you, who have made more impact, who are more deeply in depth in that field. So I would say networking is really important, and at the same time, yeah, I mean, people in students in India are like really, like really worried or anxious about finding what to do or
Right.
studying. I will just say that uh, take it like really relaxed, take it in a very relaxed manner, and just trust your gut, trust your instincts, and I've seen that trusting your guts like makes you more lucky and makes you more successful. So yeah, just take a chill pill and at the same time keep connecting with people, and like keep listening to your podcast would be one thing.
Okay. That was a great experience interviewing you for this podcast. Thank you so much for your insight on your particular fields of work.
Yeah, thank you, Aditi, for being such a great host. I really enjoyed the questions, and yeah, all the best with all of your future podcasters.
Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. If you found this video useful, please hit the like, share, subscribe buttons below and leave us your comments in the comments section. Thank you.